Good afternoon. Welcome to the Knowing is Growing series of DBS Bank. DBS Bank is a leading financial institution in Asia, headquartered in Singapore and operates out of 18 geographies. DBS Bank believes in bringing Asian insights and knowledge to its customers in order for the customers to gain from them. This series is therefore aimed at really going down to the basics, going down to what is happening in the industry, what are the trends, what would benefit the SME clients of DBS. It is really not only positioned to clients and therefore moving to the larger SME population. It's really meant to provide industry expertise, insights, guidance, and in line with this we have Mr. Manohar Hottinani, who is a partner business development in Microsoft India. He brings with him a huge amount of expertise in the digital space, and really that is the topic for us today. Is digitization the need of the hour for SMEs? And we would like to focus on what it means, because this is the buzzword. This is what is making a huge amount of impact to successful and not so successful SMEs. It is important for the SMEs to know how they could harness or leverage this. But why am I saying all about this? It is best that he gives the context, because Manohar is the expert in this area. So over to you, if you could set the context in terms of what does this mean for SMEs.
Thank you, Amitabh, and thank you DBS Bank for basically inviting me over. Today's context is very dear to me. If you go to my passion, I basically in my personal time I want to be relevant to billion Indians, and those billion Indians are primarily defined by SMEs, if you see. Today let me set the context of what we are talking about. There are, by any set of research, and I'll go through various researches that primarily have been done over the past few years in terms of total number of SMEs, what is their profile, what are they looking for, and what are the enablers today that are accelerating the change to make it digital. From our perspective, if I go through various researches, these are from Zinnov, BCG, and potentially from Forbes, that data that we pick up are primarily that India has about 51 million SMEs. Now that's a huge number. Any survey basically points out to having between 30 to 51 million SMEs. Context this to that these 51 million SMEs employ millions of people and contribute to roughly about 38% of the GDP. That's a huge number, Amitabh. Now in that context, I also want to contextualize these SMEs into three primary broad categories. First, SME, which is less than 10 employees. As an organization, they contribute 96.3% of the total 51 million number. Then there is this context of 10 to 100 employee companies, which are primarily 3 or 3.5%, and roughly about, if you take the 100 to 1,000 employee organizations, these are roughly about 0.3 to 0.5% of that number. What in that context, what are we talking about? We are talking about primarily a million entities which have accelerated themselves between 100 to 1,000 employees. There are these emerging companies that are basically in the 3 to 3.5% who are adopting to technology and are getting enabled today, and then there is a mass number of audience of people who are sitting out there who are waiting to understand how this digitization will help them, what are the things that are there. And now let me contextualize to what all of these people are using. If you take WhatsApp today, it was a viral app that basically came in to basically bring in on the phone a method to communicate. That primary instrument is now getting used for commerce by almost all of them. And what are these enablers that are making these change? The enablers that are making these change today for digitalization as a subject for SMEs is primarily broadly three things. First, the overall ecosystem is getting enabled by infra, which is all the devices and mobiles that are available anywhere between $40 to $500. Imagine as a country with smartphones which as low as $40-50 as the input price, which can basically get them digital. That's the first broad thing. You now can get a PC starting at $200 to $250, which is a fully loaded PC for you to start doing work around. You can get a tablet at almost the same price, right? You can get products that can work across all three of them as a spectrum. So that's the first broad enabler. Right. As what.
And actually, the proof of the pudding is in terms of today, as we speak to our customers, increasingly everybody wants things delivered on the smartphone.
Absolutely.
So it's becoming, and it's not just the price, the impact of that is beginning to get felt. Yes, so it's completely a very, very valid and a very, very pervasive observation which is beginning to change the way things are happening.
The second point that is enabling this is the the easy availability of the internet. Today, a lot of people are using 2G internet, 3G internet is catching up. Now we have players who are going to launch 4G internet at a fraction of a price. So over the next 3 years, we assume that internet would become utility for almost all these people, which means now you have a low cost device with a great number of features which can stream a lot of things, available with now a utility which can make you in the internet space 24/7 available for your customers, for your suppliers, for your vendors, and for your own employees to be connected. And the third most important thing that is basically doing this is the cloud. The cloud has come and changed the way companies are delivering, enabling softwares either in customer acquisition or in talent retention or even talent acquisition or in compliances. Basically, you no longer need to pay for those fixed high prices just at the beginning of the cycle in terms of capital cost. You can decide that you want to be on the premise with capital cost infrastructure and depreciate it, or you can basically decide to move to the cloud infrastructure where you go start from zero, use it and pay on a monthly, quarterly and yearly basis and basically stay current. I think one of the critical questions that keep coming back to me is that with this world changing so fast, how am I going to save my investment? What are the protection methods that are there? But if you get to the cloud, all of that goes away. Primarily, you will get the current technology at a fraction of a price that you were paying, monitored by a company that's offering it to you. So these are primarily three big levers, and follow this up with what Indian government is trying to do with Digital India.
Before we come into the Indian government for a second, so clearly I think you've laid a perfect platform to kind of lay down as to why is it becoming so accessible, why or how it is becoming pervasive, and therefore it is how do we now leverage that. And I think that's where from an environment setting and that's where which you just started off on, what is happening, and we've heard of the Digital India, we heard of all the digital campaigns which are coming in. So maybe if you could throw a few light on that, that would again put the context from a different layer or different perspective.
So I think one is what the companies and the technology is enabling. The second is what the government is trying to enable. The government is trying to enable for everybody to go online and basically make this a global village to sell our products and offerings to the whole world. Now, that said, the enablers along with the government are only trying to push on 2 or 3 factors, and that is also what you see today in terms of what the e-commerce players are trying to do. They're generating millions of people to come to the website to basically buy, and they're also going to suppliers to say, okay, come on the site and sell on my platform, which means now someone sitting in Jaipur as an example has a beautiful handicraft that he wants to sell, a carpet or some artifacts. He can get a real price of what his goods is worth rather than putting it to a middleman who basically makes 90% of the money. Same thing in terms of an example that I can give you is what ITC Choupal is trying to do through aggregating mandis to basically go and make our farmers get the real price of what is happening. So you can take any industry. I think the entire outcome that the government is trying to say is let's get there, let's get to the real price so that we can get everything what is really the manufacturer or producer of that device or product or service to get the right price, and it becomes a perfect marketplace for people to get to.
Absolutely, and this marketplace which we are talking of is changing the way things or business is being done, and I'm sure this is here to stay. It would evolve from here, and therefore this now brings into context the availability of devices has become cheaper, and if I heard you correct, and I completely agree with you, the technologies are becoming simpler, and it is becoming far more. You can bring the latest technology with cloud, as you mentioned. The government is enabling, the marketplace is coming in. So all this is showing why or what or how. What is the real benefit for the SMEs? What is it that would cost them to do it? But before even going to the cost, I think the real value, how would you say that would it be for a survival of an SME or growth of an SME, is this critical or is this good to have? I think that's the question which is there.
So I think you asked me 3 questions, Amitabh. I think you're guising them beautifully into sets of questions that are so disparate but are all connected at the end of the day. I think the first question you asked me is what's stopping people to adopt. The second question is what are the benefits that people can get immediately that they can go, and the third that you asked me is how fast they can see returns of all of this, right?
Right.
Fundamentally, the first question is what's stopping them is, I think, an area of awareness on people. People are getting to learn in terms of what is the real cost of owning a technology. Let me just give you a very simple view to what Microsoft has to offer you, for example, for 2 minutes to you. Today a PC from, let's say, one of our vendors, either Micromax or equivalent of that, costs $200, $250, which is bare bone price that you need to pay, but that device will work. If you take from Nokia, we sell the product, a beautiful 535 fully loaded smartphone at about $80. Now, so the price factor is taken care for you. The second element is most of the SMEs today have someone standing to be the technology guy. Either it's the finance guy or it's in the administration side who is basically trying to put together a system, a working system for you to basically cut invoices or basically look at supply chain in terms of your inventorization. Look at it beyond that. Look at it for a customer acquisition engine. Look at it from a customer retention and engine, because all of these elements today are critical for success of you, because the customer loyalties are also changing. I was just giving an example today morning to someone, and this example is so pertinent because it comes from my wife as a user. She is a doctor, and today I can tell you that she runs her own home healthcare company, but at the end of the day she is now deciding for 2 things. She is saying, what do I need to buy, and she is making the decision looking at the digital world of what she sees on the internet. She is no longer that person who used to go to a trusted advisor and ask for what you want to sell to me. She's made 50 to 60% of this decision already on the internet, and then she'll possibly go to 3 sources to figure out where she's getting the best bargain, and she'll buy it. Coming to your point, or coming to the point that who is basically making these decisions, let's take a SME, and I'm sure some of you watching it would go and look up to what I'm saying as the truth. If it is less than 100 member company, I don't think there's an IT department. IT is a facilitation point for a lot of businesses. It's not the core point. Give it out to the experts who can do it, and with cloud coming in, you don't need to have an IT department. You can actually go and make that happen, because a lot of that management has gone to the cloud providers who are providing this technology to you. So that headache is moved on to somebody else. Right. You get to start using it day one that you buy it, if it is just an off-the-shelf adoption. If it is a customer relationship management software, the gestation cycles have come down significantly. We can now make people go online in between 15 to 30 days for you to go to the market and start adopting to this and start seeing benefits of this come in overnight. So gestation cycles have gone down. Somebody else is doing it for you. The non-core areas, pass it on the cloud. The core areas that you thought you want to keep it, talk to the experts. They will figure out and tell you how secure the internet and the cloud is. And some of the providers like Microsoft guarantee you security at the end of the day for you putting your data on the cloud from a privacy perspective. And the third most important element that you basically said, what are the advantages that you get? Let me give you a simple example. You use some of our products, email, Office, everything else. If you buy it in a CapEx model, you told us that in the SME world, these were things that were high cost initially. Now it costs, sometimes at less than the cost of one employee coffee for a month, you can actually subscribe to a service. So you can subscribe to a service at the cost that you can associate to, that you can pay for and immediately see the benefits.
Right. No, I think you covered a fair amount of ground on that one, and really 2 things I would want to touch upon, and one, I go back to a few of our earliest editions of the webinars, and I think what came out through various industry experts discussions, that SMEs, as you said, less than 100 people, less than 50 people, less than 30 people, whichever way you classify, one of the biggest issues is talent, and therefore people are multitasking, because getting people to do various things, whether it's a legal, whether it's IT, it's a real challenge. And therefore if you're able to find a way in which you are able to solve for it, and you get the best in class solution, suddenly the whole competitiveness changes, and therefore that in some form answers whether it's a good to have or a necessary to have, the digitalization, and therefore to my mind it is definitely a good to have. Now what would take it to be essential to have from a survival standpoint? And as I look at it, and I'm trying to broaden this into a bit more to look at, because I want to take on two things which you mentioned, and I think that's important. One thing is to do digitization, which is you're converting paper into digital processes, or you're doing various kind of things which are simplification, making it more efficient. So those are all far more in the traditional space. Does it have a benefit? It has. It is good to have because you're able to bring down costs and your margins go up. But what, as Manohar said, if you're able to do it for customer experience, what if you're able to do it for acquisition? And I want to take him onto these two terms which he used in a little while earlier.
Sure.
Can this be used for customer acquisition? Can this be used for customer retention? And can this be used for customer experience? And suddenly you're talking of a whole different ballgame. So I would want to leave that with you in terms of, if you want to elaborate a bit around that, because I have lots of examples where I think this can be done, but I would want to hear from you in terms of these two terms that you used.
Okay, great. I'll just give you a very simple example that each one of us has gone to start using. Cabs in Mumbai was a huge challenge, and we all agree that once we used to get into Kali Pili taxi, and with due regards to my brother in Kali Pili taxis, I think they have their own challenges that they are fighting and figuring out. But look at Uber and look at Ola, what they've come and done for you. They have just democratized the way that you can order a cab, own a car, beautiful cars run by beautiful chauffeurs. At the end of the day, you as a customer have a voice to go and say that every service that you use from them, give an instant record to them in terms of whether you felt good or bad. This is a modern example of how tech is enabled that industry to basically get real-time feedback in terms of how their drivers are doing, whether the cabs are good, whether the service is up to the mark, and in terms of convenience, they basically are getting customers, becomes an acquisition model, becomes a retention model, because they can do marketing through you for a variety of experiences, positive experiences that you will talk to 5 more people. This we call zero marketing, because at the end of the day, you are primarily bringing in 50 to 100 more people for me. Right. It is almost at zero cost. Now contextualize this to a different example that I can give you. Every SME today is travels basically to go and meet a customer, to do a lot of context setting on that. If you had a method where you could securely connect up with your suppliers on a virtual chat or a virtual model where you could share everything in privacy without anything being transported over the internet so that data doesn't leak out, that platform is available on Skype today for you, and that platform basically makes you talk in real time, get to a real time use, close the conversation, close what you discussed, send it out on an email, close that loop. What we are talking to you is, now let me give you a third example of a non-Microsoft instance that basically people are using technology to. Take the hotel industry today. What Airbnb is done to you is to significantly reduce your cost without owning a single hotel. Neither Uber owns single inventory nor Airbnb owns a single inventory, but they are the largest booking points today for either a taxi or a hotel industry. Right. Contextualize that to a guy in Jaipur or in Pune who is doing design on auto ancillary or on artifacts. Because they are so good in their design and have something unique to offer, they're getting customers from outside to find them on the internet very easily and get them contracts.
That's right. So really what you are saying is that it's moving towards a partnership based economy, sharing economy, than everything you need to create yourself. So suddenly an SME whose limitation was the local market, the local sales efforts, the absence of being ability to advertise, to reach out to the market, suddenly can reach a lot more, because you suddenly have it available on the internet, available on devices. You are able to reach a lot more people through social media, through, he mentioned WhatsApp at the beginning of the discussion. So suddenly if you have a good product, the bottom line remains, any SME, you need to have a value proposition, a product or a solution or service which is good. And if you have that, today you have far better chances and far better tools to make an impact, thanks to some of these tools, and therefore that's where it starts moving from being good to have to essential to have, because then your success, your scale up, and all of that starts getting dependent on that. Let me move it slightly to a different side. We touched on it briefly thus far, and is on the cost side of it, because all of that, while it is easy to assimilate, and I'm moving away from the front end devices for a minute, because for SMEs the system which I run, you talked about supply chain systems for example. So there are ways and means. People have legacy systems, people have solutions which have been there. So what would it cost for them to revamp, because technology does change very often, and how do you cope with the changing technology?
I think that's a fair question, Amitabh, and I think that's top of the mind for some of them who have adopted to technology in the past. How fast can I monetize for the investments that I have made? My two-bit answer to that is very simple. We at Microsoft believe in hybrid, which means use your existing infrastructure and how can you connect to the new infrastructure and provide that. That is why we have often given you a product on premise which which a lot of SMEs are anyway using, and now easily you can migrate to the cloud from your new acquisitions that you're trying to make. To answer in a nutshell, I think it is a process at the end of the day for you to understand which areas are you going to put on tech, which are the areas that are your challenge. Call in an advisor. We have a large partner ecosystem at the end of the day. When we believe in the partner ecosystem, to your point on partnerships, we go to the expert. So if it is, I'll give you a very simple example. In Pune, there is a partner of ours who's gone to discrete manufacturing, and he's building something on top of our platforms to go to the cable industry. At the end of the day, there are only 25 cable manufacturers, but you look at the amount of discrete information that he's trying to collect from old machines, put it together and make it predictive in terms of how they can save cost on the shop floor. There are a lot of these elements that you can go together, because there are a lot of our partners who are developing these solutions for you at a fraction of a cost and can migrate your existing investments to the new investments very quickly.
Right. And I think that gives a perspective on that. I think other question which I have is around the risks. Like everything else, there are risks. Digitization can lead to privacy being compromised. It can lead to hacks in the system. It can lead to a costly impact. So what are some of the risks in your mind which you see when people digitize, and how can one mitigate them? I think that's the more important question.
Thank you for bringing that, Amitabh, and this is what we stood for always at Microsoft, that we say that there are two models. Someone who offers it free of cost to you, ad monetizes that at the end of the day, where he's not giving you any SLAs to what he's reading from you, what data is he reading, and hence what is he trying to follow you up with. We at Microsoft give you a very simple SLA in terms of how your data is secure, what are we committing to, and hence if there is anything that goes wrong, what are the penalties associated to it. In this new digital world, one thing that you as digital patrons also need to be very careful about is what are you following, how are you following your life, what are you leading on the internet, and of yourself as an image, because the internet catches you very fast in terms of catching your profiles. So one thing that I would say is work with vendors at the end of the day who can guarantee you that your data is secure, that anything that you publish is not going to be shared, that they have certain compliances that they show you as methods for them to differentiate themselves, just not on price, because these are very important elements that Amitabh is bringing up, because there are only two ways to monetize it. Either I will monetize through a different method by giving it free to you by taking your information, or I'll upfront tell you that I'm going to take it so much cost because I'm not going to monetize it in any other way. We have both the models. We have a free model and we have a paid model. You need to decide which one works for you and what is it that you're willing to give away for that. Read the terms and conditions of every site that you sign up at the beginning, because those terms and conditions are clearly laid out.
Right. No, I think that's a very important point. But for a minute, I will move on the risk side of it. In terms of sometimes what happens in the traditional way, you have people who are solving, and you have a manufacturing company, you're running through various processes. Now you have digitized it, everything is on the system, and suddenly there is a process breakdown. Now from an SME standpoint, there is, so how did you start, does digitization, and what is the BCP, and for a minute, selection is done, now what is the BC, are those things which are important, are those things which one would need to focus on?
So when you mean BCPs, just define that for me.
Is business contingency planning, or
okay,
or those which allows you to continue, because the risks or chances of the system sometimes not behaving the way you want could also arise.
So what you're basically saying is in two folds. One, that I digitize my data, someone can take away my data. There are examples of that in terms of how we work around that. Right. And then there are examples of my site being up, which is the only site that basically raises invoicing as a method for my customers, and that is down, and hence I can't do invoicing. I'm just taking two very disparate set of examples in terms of business contingency plans that you're talking about. From our perspective, I think there is a method to both of them. It's only the question of how you architect your company in terms of what you want at the end of the day. Get to talk to an expert, for which we've raised a very good partner ecosystem, which will come and sit with you and architect that for you in terms of what you need, what are the minimum guarantees that you need, what is the business contingency for you. It may vary from different people, from different sets of people, and also follow a security policy, because at the end of the day, today in this world, let me give you an example. I won't name this company. It was a travels company which had installed cameras in Delhi, and in travel company, you know that an inquiry comes in. If you don't follow through that inquiry as an agent, within 4 to 8 hours somebody else can just follow and eat that inquiry up, right? That particular company, before we went in with our cloud solution and with our devices, had cameras installed all over its place. But look at it, the cameras would only capture a person. What if in today's world I take a photograph of the system rather than just transmitting on an email? We could control those devices by giving him devices which were locked the moment they came in, so camera won't work. It was basically defined as a policy that the owner wanted us to do, which was defined in the instruments and as an overall architecture of his policy. This doesn't take too much time. It's only how much you want to pass on. And in 7 days after we installed the system, all his cameras are gone, everything is gone. Now it's working beautifully. If someone doesn't answer within 15 minutes of an email coming in, an agent, it raises a question, it raises a bar to the next guy and the next guy, so that within 30 minutes the owner knows that someone is not answering to queries. If someone is trying to use a USB port for taking something out, it sends a query to someone. If someone is trying to use a camera, it basically sends a query out to someone. So these are all security policies that you follow at the end of the day, which you need to sit together, help articulate along with some of our partners who will help you out on this. We have a very large partner ecosystem that can help you on this.
No, I think that gives a good rounded overview on the subject, because in my mind I think this is such a vast subject that you can touch it from somewhere and you can go anywhere else, because digitization is big. I think, as Manohar mentioned, it goes around how do you run your business. It goes down into what are the costs, the way it is coming down, goes down into cloud computing, which really helps you gain the expertise without really investing in everything yourself. It goes down to how do you leverage it for your business, how do you use it in your supply chains, in your acquisitions, customer retention, etc. How do you, what is the kind of cost which you would need to look at, how do you look at such that these systems continue to remain relevant and they don't become obsolete and you're left clinging on to an older system. How do you see to it that when these systems, if they have challenges, what are the kind of controls or what are the kind of standards you need to maintain, so that this gives you the kind of returns, or the kind of returns is the wrong word, kind of continuity of business and continuity of areas. So really it is about taking the life of your business and looking at it, how do you use these tools in order to be successful.
I think there's one more point that is very important for all SMEs. This is what I've heard, and I want to also open this up later when the Q&As come in, is talent. You briefly touched upon talent. And everybody in this industry is trying to get the millennials to work with them, which is the new age guys who are coming in, all the marks that you hire, the new guys from colleges or the girls from colleges. At the end of the day, those people want to work with companies that are digitized or are digital, because each one of them is tech enabled. They have used all these devices from the time they live on it. You just see some of your kids around in terms of moving between technologies. I think so it becomes a good talent acquisition point for you and talent retention in this modern world as well.
Absolutely. Since you mentioned question and answers, I think it may be a good idea to, I see a whole host of questions which are coming in from our audience.
Sure.
And maybe it would be far more pertinent to try and solve for some of those.
Sure.
So I have some of them which are appearing on my screen. So let me try and read out. We have, what is the skill set that SMEs need to adopt to leverage the benefits of digitization? Example, if I'm a trader in Jaipur, how do I safeguard my interest while working with Amazon, etc.?
I think very good question to what you're asking us. Let me give you an example of what you're in Jaipur. I assume that you are in business which basically deals with either gems, jewelries or artifacts or something else which you want to list on Amazon and try and trade on it. At the end of the day, first you need to be digitized for all the information that you have. Second, you need to be connected where your inventory needs to be online. Third, you need to basically have systems which can accept payments. All of this is important for you to get to that point of first building your presence. We have partnerships with people like GoDaddy and all, which provide domains for you. At the end of the day, it also provides email systems along with it for you to connect to your vendor and be available in real time. So from my perspective, there is an onboarding program that most of these e-commerce companies have. Just make sure that you cater to that onboarding program and accordingly make sure that you get your technology in. Those are the best ways for you to get fast. Terms and conditions you will need to read, because terms and conditions can vary between different people in terms of marketplaces. That is what I would say. Be very clear, establish your presence and let that presence connect to that site rather than you just trading on that site.
I'll probably answer it in a slightly more simpler way. First and foremost, what you would need, what skill set an SME would need would be mindset. Because in my view, I think you can go on in a traditional manner, or you would be ready to change, ready to use technology, ready to use tools in order to get further ahead. So I think the first skill set which you would need is mindset, because this process will change fundamentally some of the ways you would do business. Once you start using that, it would be how do you harness, leverage that, and ultimately, as I have seen, it does not remove relationships. Relationships are an integral part of doing business. What it does, it improves the speed, the efficiency, as well as connects various people. So therefore, the second skill set which you would need would be to have an interface of these and adapt to that change. Because suddenly, if earlier you were able to take a decision in 1 week, today if you need to take a decision in 4 hours, you also need to start thinking, how do I take decisions fast? Because if you have the tools and then you don't take a decision, then you don't derive the full advantage of that. So therefore, from a skill set perspective, your own skill set augmentation in order to leverage this would be important. The third is a lot more on the technical side, as Manohar mentioned, which is in terms of you need to have the tools in which will enable you to choose the right partner, the right systems, the right products for your typical needs, and then on the basis of that you would use that.
I think Amitabh, you just summarized it beautifully. The mindset that I did not start with is, I assume that the person who asked this question is convinced that these marketplaces that are coming up are the right method for him to sell or her to sell at the end of the day. And that is why that decision is already made. If that decision is not made, it's just in the infancy stage, then I think first you need to make that decision. And I think it will be a hybrid world. I don't think it will be a world where one takes over the other. We are basically trying to grow the market together between online and offline world. So I think you will have to coexist at the end of the day.
The second question I have, what measures should be taken while digitizing the supply chain for the manufacturing industry?
These are very specific questions, but let me just tell you, in the manufacturing industry today, one of your biggest challenges that I understand when I was in Pune is that you're getting competition from our neighbor who's very large, who's throwing material at a fraction of a cost of what you're producing, even though your product is much superior at times, but your manufacturing volumes are probably low. That is what is assimilating this. If you get to a stage of making sure that your wastages are low, you can control cost. The customer is not going to pay more at the end of the day, and that can be in terms of instrumentation and using technology at different levels of supply chain for you to go to. Now this is very technical answer, Amitabh would say that, but let me just simplify this for you. Please bring in the relevant tools for you to make your decisions so that you know and predict your supply chain properly. I don't think you should overproduce or underproduce, but right produce, and that amount of data is available in the system for you to put the systems and produce right. A lot of these people are using these data which is available in the domain. A manufacturer in Pune, small manufacturer, told me this, that he is using looking at this data and figuring out the world events that are happening and accordingly produces, not overproduce and underproduce, and puts it out in the market at different price points and different seasons.
Right. No, absolutely, and maybe this time for a change I'll get a little more technical in terms of see, ultimately the vendor and whether it's a supplier or a buyer, it's how you connect and how does the invoice flow happens, how does the flow of good happens, how does the reconciliation happen, how does the flow of money happen, how does that get reconciled in your accounting package or ERP system. So when you say as digitization of the supply chain, I think it's talking of a lot of things, because ultimately you have a physical good which in the manufacturing setup which is going to move from your supplier to yourself, where you do some value addition, it will go to your buyer. So in the whole process it is the underlying flows. So how well they match, how well do you have this reference numbers which knocks off each other at each point of time without a manual interface, how well do these systems pop up exceptions, how well is, because you could have many things. For example, if on the supply chain you get payment, either if you pay in the first 15 days, then you will get a 5% cash discount, and that happens in the industry. So therefore, how do you reconcile that 5% cash discount if the amount which is billed and amount which you receive is different because you are availing of the cash discount? So the complexity and simplicity of the system which will allow you for easy reconciliation would be very important. Similarly, when you say digitization of the process, it's a question of how well you are able to capture the essence of your business through different business rules, which would then play so that you can replicate the real world into this process, and you can bring in an element of automation around that. And I think that would be as important for you to have a successful supply chain business and solution. And today tools are available across, and various banks would be able to do a lot for you as well. But at the same time, it is a question of how well all these play. Your ERP system in the SME space, a lot of you, for example, will be using Tally. So how does Tally, how does your internet banking platform, how does the buyer portal, the seller portal, how do they all interface and play? So it's really getting in not so complex, but it's really getting the basics right there, and then the life becomes a lot more simpler.
So I'll just add to what he said. Basically, there are multiple ways that you can digitize. Just to simplify, a lot of people don't still use email. That's the first method in simplicity for you to now get in real time of exchanging information in real time, which is documented, which has a value rather than capturing everything on voice. Second play to that is connecting up with your suppliers at the end of if there is a disconnect, as you mentioned. I talked about this, you're talking about it. The third place is in terms of having a system. So all of this, if you see, come in beautifully with systems that we develop which come at a fraction of a cost, and O365 is a complete system which can give you all of this, and NAV has been a traditional product that we have for small businesses which can be implemented very fast. All of these are decision points, what you need to implement, what you need to drop out, and what are your critical processes. Define that first, sit with a partner, define that. I'm sure you will get significant outcomes of this, and make a timeline. I think timelines are important in this modern world. Define something, get it up and running, and then go to the next process. So it's an iterative process at the end of the day.
Absolutely. The next question I have, what are the critical success factors for digitization?
I think this is a very large question. From digitization, it can start from an email and go to a complete ERP system in terms of whether you have a human interface to everything or whether you don't have a human interface. So I think I would like to say it's as basic as putting all your data from paper to the system, or it's as deep as doing predictive analysis of how your suppliers and vendors and your creditors are going to work through in the real world.
The next question I have, does digital marketing really help? With the large volumes of white noise in the digital channels for marketing, do the costs really justify the returns?
I think you need to be intelligent in digital marketing. This is something that you will need to do irrespective, because presence is something that you will need to establish. How do you establish your presence on the social channels today is a critical factor of how you get to know. And let me ask you this question, if some of you want to come and iterate with Amitabh and me. When Amitabh called me, I went to LinkedIn and checked his profile, and I'm sure when he called me, he checked my profile. So that's the first basic thing. People are today checking about before going somewhere to figure out if there is any information available. So creation of basic social network and social marketing is a must. How much money you want to put in depends on the industry that you are in, the maturity of your markets, and what is the kind of business that you are doing. Certain markets have certain verticals have significantly high maturity on digital marketing. Certain markets are evolving, but everyone is going and making a presence there at the end of the day.
Right. No, I think you have answered it because it's again a massive area. I think the other area which, and as you were talking of digital marketing, I think the areas which digitization is coming in is large. I think the area where we didn't cover in as much detail is again the payment space. And I think the payment space, the digitization is there's a whole revolution happening there. And so maybe that's again something, anything you would want to elaborate on the payment space and the digitization which is happening?
I think I can only say, if most of you would be aware, you are running your own businesses. I consider all the entrepreneurs who are listening to us are much more smarter people at the end of the day. They know what are the trends that are happening. I think just consider this. This is my personal view. It has nothing to do with Microsoft overall. Is that payment gateways, wallets are only making it easy for facilitation to happen at the end of the day. It is also making sure that people understand that we are moving to a new world where convenience is becoming that much more relevant. And so according to me, that industry would significantly take off, and you can see from that in the way that government announced national payment corporations and other initiatives. You're a banker. I would want to pass on this question to you and basically ask you, what do you feel about it?
You know, I think the payment space is really revolutionizing. I think what one was doing in the past, the speed, the accuracy, the ease, the customer experience is all changing. And in terms of whether it first started with your traditional writing of checks, into the NEFTs and RTGS, into the ECS, into the NACH, or into even those mobile IMPS, it is changing. And each one of them, what is it doing? It's meeting a specific need of an individual or an SME and providing that connectivity or quick transmission and having a quick reconciliation. And I think that's something which is here to stay. In fact, now there are specific payments banks as well, because this technologies are changing, and that is changing the speed at which these payments can be done. So I think it's an area which is going to transform the way, and this would fuel in some way how some of these digital channels would work. We spoke of a marketplace a little while earlier. I think one of the challenges being faced there is the whole cash on delivery problem, because you have today, when you go and in a typical e-commerce space, when you go and sell something, somebody comes and delivers it at your house, you have to pay a cash. How do you reconcile that? If you use a system, how do you do that? So this solving for cash on delivery, going into a payments on delivery and using one of this is also going to transform a large ways in which this whole industry and the manner in which SMEs would be able to sell, because then that whole, and if it becomes, I think it is beginning to get a little more efficient, but I think it's still a long way to go. And that change and that transition will really make a lot more impact to the SMEs. So again, this topic is a huge topic, and whether you look at it from an e-commerce space, whether you look at it from a financial inclusion and going down to the rural and to the last individual having a banking account and being able to effect payments, again the payment technology and the manner in which you would do has a bearing. So whether it is through use of Aadhaar for the account opening, because suddenly instead of going and filling large forms, you can, through biometric and use of digital technologies, you could open an account. So therefore the ways in which banking is happening, account opening is happening, payments are happening, are getting transformed. The timelines for doing these are getting transformed, the impact is getting transformed, and the use is getting transformed. So it is becoming pervasive.
And I think for a lot of SMEs who are transacting on the e-com platforms, the platforms are also trying to get you credit from suppliers, which is a beautiful thing, because one of the understandings that we also have is SMEs are always constrained by the credits that they hold for them to become large. So for this there are always pros and cons in terms of what will this do. This will bring in inclusion. It will also give a lot more money at a much reasonable price than what SMEs are paying today. This is my personal view again.
No, I was smiling as you were speaking, because this is one of the higher prioritized on my desk today.
Sure.
We do need to, and we are finding solutions, and we need to find ways and innovative ways, and because this is an area which is exploding, and you're absolutely right on that.
Great.
Lot more questions coming in. We have a question on how can the talent acquisition and multitasking problem be solved for SMEs via digitization?
I think this is an excellent question. This is a question that is the top of the mind, because according to me, an SME differentiates from another SME or a company by the talent it acquires and runs with, because people make companies at the end of the day, ideas don't, right? And talent would go and work today. When I go to schools, and different schools that I go to basically teach or to deliver sessions on, commonly I see the millennials are far ahead of us in terms of adoption of technology. And if you really want those guys to come and work for you and acquire them, then you will also have to change your mindset to acquire technology very fast, because they would like to work with people who are far more technology enabled. I'm not saying use technology as your core principle, but enable it to make those points of differentiation between you and somebody else. Second point, for these acquisitions also now today, you look at various sites, how easy it has become for you to go figure out people available on variety of mediums that give you information on talent available today. That is a second method that I would say. Third, I think primarily a BCG survey showed us, the Boston Consulting Group survey showed us that people who are more technology focused and oriented or enabled companies, SMBs, the 30% of people in that category actually got much better talent. And I'm saying this from a report which is a survey and a research report that done by third party at the end of the day. So I think that becomes a very critical point for you in the acquisition point, and hence digitization is a must for you, or getting technology enabled is a must do for you from an SME perspective.
There is another question on similar lines. Can you cite an example how one of the SMEs managed to impact the digitization of people aspect? For instance, redundancy, new skills required.
Okay, so let me give you this whole virtual classroom and stepping up and stepping down on your step learning. Every company goes through a transformation from a legacy to a new system. Microsoft has gone through a transformation from a company that is now fully focused on the cloud and has significantly driving its revenue through the cloud. While we are transforming, we are learning on a daily basis, which is enabled by technology. We have our self-learning sessions at the end of the day, which are courses where we give our exams, pass through, and each and every one of them is looked at in terms of developing capability on a scale which, while you are performing to a everyday use, you are also transforming. So it's very significant that technology is enabling me to step learn. Step learn, I can use the same technology on a mobile to basically use this 1 hour that I travel in a car today to learn while not wasting my time. So it's important for you that technology is enabling you in your free time rather than taking your productive time to make your employees more capable.
Right. If I look at it, and I can think of another example, and gaming, I think gaming is becoming popular, and how can you leverage that? So I'm aware we was working on something and using gaming technology for training, and I think if you think back, some of the more redundant or difficult or some of the more boring parts of the business, which is important, for example, which is routine, if you can get people to learn those through a gaming, suddenly it becomes that much more interesting and gets imbibed by everybody else. So how do you use the tools and techniques which are available today in order to transmit that to the last member of your team? I think that's something which is becoming possible by use of technology. So when you look at, there are hundreds of examples which are there, and when I speak to several CEOs of various of our SMEs, several of them are using technology in amazing ways, ways in which they have adapted it, ways in which they have tweaked it to meet their unique requirements. So really it is for the SMEs to really think, how can you use it for various scenarios? And he gave an example, I gave an example, and it's really about not getting limited to these examples, just go beyond to see what could I do and what is my core problem and how could I use that, and suddenly you would find that technology does provide a lot more solutions than we often think.
And I agree with you, Amitabh. I think it's, at the end of the day, it is either gamification, either virtual learning, either learning remotely via those remote classrooms, or going, at the end of the day, the time span has come down. People want to learn fast. We live in a very fast world where people want to eat in 2 minutes, and there are products that are saying in 2 minutes you can eat and fill your stomach. I think a lot of people want to then go into step learning model rather than teaching at one time.
The next question I have, and I think I have quite a few, so please bear with us. If we are not able to cover all of them, we will definitely get back to you in case if we are not. We'll try and attempt to cover as many as possible. The next question is, what are the top 3 things SMEs should do in terms of doing digital so as to create a strong foothold for global expansion in the future?
This is a subject that will cover days, but I'll try and answer from a digitization perspective because that's a topic very simply. I think the basic common minimum thing that you all use is a good email system that connects you. So communication is the first point that I would take. Have a strong communication system, because that's what your customers are looking. If you have a customer, you survive. If I have a customer, I survive. At the end of the day, customer is the thing that you get focused on. So email system, learning systems, any systems that basically connect you, a CRM system that connects you to a customer, are the first fundamental things that you should build your digitization plan on. The second system that you should look at is your systems that basically help you to become more efficient from an operational perspective, and those systems are systems that you basically again bring in terms of your ERP, CRM tools, your backend in terms of where are you storing that information, BCP situations that he spoke about. And third primary thing that you can break this up is in terms of growth. Where are your growth levers? So one is on sustenance of your business and one is on the growth side. Try and break this into those 3 elements and then build in your infrastructure at the end of the day. I think we have something to offer on all of them as a system on the cloud is what we were saying, and that's the easiest way that you can go. It is cost efficient.
Next question which I have, will digitization help SMEs in gaining access to better lines of credit? If yes, how?
I think an example of that I gave already. I want to repeat it. I think as a supplier, if you get on one of the platforms and if you are doing well, I think there is a whole series of people waiting to give you credit, because your marketplace would basically help you to get that. This is about a growth cycle where today how you behave is how you will get as an outcome. If my credit rating, for example, till now I asked for my credit rating and I got that. There was one instance where in my life of 20 years of holding a credit card, because of one day this thing, there was something I called up, I basically got it corrected. So make sure that you also look at your ratings, because in this digital world everybody's looking at us. So that's the way I would say is the best way to increase and enhance your commitment and people's commitment towards you.
What I would say is that really credit is a function of how well you are able to convince your creditors, and to do that, how transparently you are able to share information about yourself. So with digitization, if you are able to share information in a professional manner, in a transparent manner, suddenly you would find that your ratings are beginning to go up. Secondly, as we discussed through the discussion today, if I look at it, what does digitization do? It increases your competitiveness. If you are competitive, it betters your chance to succeed in the market, and believe me, If your creditors think that you are likely to be successful, they will be queuing up to give you money. So really, if you look at from a credit perspective, I think digitization has a huge role. The third area which I will cover very briefly is what we discussed around talent, around people, etc. Because if you are able to use SMEs, as I said, are crunched for talent, and therefore sometimes what happens when you look at various functions, you are not able to cover or devote as much time to each one of them, and that's one of the reasons why the credit ratings come down. But if you are using technology in order to leverage best in class in those areas, suddenly those gaps or those disadvantages begin to blend away. And if they start blending away, if they start moving away, the credit rating automatically starts improving. So whichever dimension I look at, there is a direct bearing on your competitiveness, and that has a direct bearing on the credit which a creditor would be willing to take. So I think it's a fairly an important area which you must focus on. The next question which I have is, what would be the future lifespan of digitization in terms of legacy digitization processes?
You mean legacy systems or legacy technology that you have adopted? What would be that? Let me give you a very simple example. In some cases you would be able to use, if you are, let me give you an example. Highest usage in SMEs is of an office product where you go use Word, PowerPoint, Excel, all of that. You can continue to use, and when you get in a new one, you basically can integrate to the new one. So all your new ones you can acquire on the cloud, while you can continue to use your existing ones as you stand. Some places where you have invested, which are your proprietary systems, I doubt those closed systems, proprietary systems will have any use, but it is important for you to consider cloud everywhere, because at the end of the day, when you use cloud, a lot of that is pay as you go solution. You can use, if you're not happy, you can shut that service down and you're passing this on to somebody else. So there are areas that you will use your legacy systems, and there may be areas that you will have to move on to the new one, to be fair.
Fair enough. I think I have a question on what is the implication of the Indian government's new Digital India campaign on the Indian SME industry?
So I'll quote a very simple Zinnov report that says the impact, real impact of that can be as high as consideration of $7.5 billion more of spends that government will do through that technology. So anyone who is addressing that to begin with first will have to be digital. And as an outcome of that, the whole world is also looking at India, because we've started using technology from various different elements, and I think each one is using it in some way or the other. It's about integration and now accelerating to maturing the process.
I think that's a very, very big question, and I think it kind of summarizes where we are. Because if we look at this whole conversation which we have had, we started off saying why and how is it increasingly becoming accessible. The costs are coming down. We spoke about the whole range of how we could use, apply, and what is happening, and what is happening in the environment, how the payment space is changing, how could one become competitive, what are the kind of risks which one may be taking, what is the kind of, and how they are getting mitigated, and so on and so forth. And it sums up in terms of that the entire ecosystem, including to the Digital India campaign, everything is in a way conspiring, if I may use the word, or everything is getting funneled, channeled in order to use this technology, and I think the SMEs would gain a lot if they are able to harness it. So it's very important for the SMEs to start joining this bandwagon. Look at what is relevant for you. It doesn't mean that you need to do everything, but choose what is relevant. So your business drives what technology you take, not the other way around. Look at your business, look at your drivers of your business, and then pick and choose what will give you advantage, and do that. On this note, I would like to thank Manohar for joining us today as part of our Knowing is Growing series. This is a very, very important topic, and I hope that you would have gained from this discussion. Please do feel free to share any of your feedback to us, and I know that some of your questions we have not been able to answer due to paucity of time. We will get back to you. All the best and have a happy digital journey. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amitabh.